5 years, as I've been told. And I think he put West Covina on the map, honestly. My Jenks family side thinks the same, but they did meet, so they probably partitioned it or something. Bud was my best friend. He was a mentor, also my father, and he stuck to the latter of those very strongly, that we, as much as you think we're peers, he also influenced me greatly as someone who knew a lot more than I did, even though I was trying to explain otherwise. Latter years, he was well known as Granddaddy Bud, and he was a great grandfather, great granddaddy to Michaela Lynn, Ona Justine, Trevor and Tristan and Nikolai Svetkovich, my sister's children. And he never forgot a birthday, I can tell you that. As you know, Bud loved spending time with family and friends, and he loved to party, and that's why we're here today. And hanging around his house was some of the most memorable times of my life. And I see some of the friends here and the family that would join us at the pool parties, and we'd challenge each other to jump off the pool roof. And one time Bud did a full gainer off the pool roof. I've never done a gainer, so I was really impressed. This was after several beers, so I was quite scared, but he did it. So most of the time around this pool, all of the friends would get into conversations, and I think they solved all of life's problems. Or at least maybe their immediate problems. But they'd come back the next week and start them all over again. Bud was very comfortable with who he was, and all those who encountered him really saw that immediately in him. He was not trying to be anything else other than Bud Baltzell. And the cars that he drove represented that. So, the first time I met him, he was barreling down Workman Avenue as I'm waiting for my mom's first date with him, and I'm supposed to look for Buddy. Well, he shows up in a car that looked out of a Stephen King novel and a cross between Sanford and Son. I don't know, but when I saw it, he looked out the window at me and said, "Are you Robert?" I said, "Are you Bud?" I jumped in the car with him, and that was the start of a wonderful, wonderful life together. So, excuse me, most of these cars that he had were ready for the scrap pile. And I was actually handed a few of them, and I was very grateful for them, believe me. And I proudly represented Continental Colorcraft on the side of my car. As long as it could get to the beach, it was a worthy car. But most of the time I always had to have someone in the car so we could push start it. But again, it was a car. Let's see where I am. The other thing to remember Buddy by was his mustaches, his goatee. And one thing I will always remember is the one I liked the most was his, the one with the handlebars. And he looked like Salvador Dali or the world's strongest man. So I was bummed when he finally cut that, but he would always try something else out, tight goatee or whatever, but it was always a facial hair experiment, I'll call it. So, I'll always remember the trips we took, skiing or to Lake Hume. They were very memorable. And I just remember we would pack the car, and it was like a Rubik's Cube that wasn't ever going to come together. So we would start at about 4 in the morning, and we would start packing this car and then unpack it and retry it. And these were our trips. Then we'd have to throw 2 dogs in there. And then after we did it all, we'd stop at an ice house, because he wanted to always pick up his ice at this famous ice house, I call it. So we'd have to unpack it again and get back in it. But great moments, and of course, that was part of the trip, believe me. Let's see. I am very grateful that Bud came into my life when I was 12 years old. And that's when he came barreling down Workman Avenue in the famous car, the station wagons that he seemed to love. So from that, let's see, I recall that after our first meeting, it wasn't long, I don't remember a whole lot until we went to Lake Hume, where I met the greatest people, the McDonald family, the Yaklovich family, and the Burns family, and a bunch of other families and extended families from there. It was fantastic. They didn't care if I bathed, they didn't care if I cut my hair, they didn't care if I wore a shirt. They just said, if you want to go fishing, let's go fishing. And that's all I did. And I have some great times fishing with Mike, Tommy, and Pat, of course. And hopefully the fish I caught this year, Pat, I had to throw it in. I had to throw it. Because Bud was there to try and net it. Let's see. Well, all of these families influenced me greatly, and I know they're there, they support me, and they're there if I ever need them, and I'm there for them. And it's been a wonderful addition to my family, because they love my family and my wife and everybody greatly, and feel very comfortable with them. So wonderful going up to Hume and making that the first summer where I believe I fell in line when a 12-year-old might have been able to fall out of line. And I greatly appreciate that from the Baltzell family, and especially Buddy. Everybody has a favorite quality about Bud, and it's difficult to pick one, but mine is his sense of humor, and I will miss that the most. He always had a joke, and it always seemed fitting for the time and place. And I'm going to give you an example of a joke, and of course I'm not good at jokes, but I hope it comes off right. So, he's at the VA, and it wasn't too long ago, and he's in the waiting room. And of course, towards the end he had to do a lot of waiting. So he's in the waiting room, and a couple of fellows behind him are saying, "Ah, gee, it's taking a long time, this is really, bugging me," and they're starting to get a little antsy. Bud turns to him and says, "What did the gardener say to the monkey when he cut off his tail with a lawnmower?" Well, they looked at him and said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, it won't be long now." Well, they get a chuckle, and they're going, "Okay. What do you think the doctor says when he comes out from behind the door?" "It won't be long now." He said they almost ripped off the back of their chair. So that was Bud. I couldn't tell a joke to save my life, but he could always show up and just have a perfect joke, some sort of rhyme, or just some event. It was wonderful. In the end, he fought a courageous fight against a dreadful disease. His physical strength diminished, but his smile and his strength never wavered in knowing that this was going to be the end. And I will always remember Buddy's grip in his hands, because they never wavered, waned at all. And when he would clasp my hands with his big bare paw, and believe me, it was a big bare paw, he would squeeze it till it was blue. His physical strength channeled itself into these hands, and he passed his love and gratitude for a life that he assured me was very worth living. And Bud's grip will be forever in my heart, and will represent the richness of the memories and the love he gave to others. Thank you.